planning on reviewing comics in this channel for some time now, because I do enjoy reading comics, especially manga, which of course is Japanese comics. I'm trying to get into American comics, just bear with me on why I'm not too familiar or knowledgeable about comics in general, especially the ones from Marvel and DC. I would like to say something for future reference for my later comic book reviews. When I get around to reviewing ongoing series from either Marvel or DC, such as X-Men, Iron Man, Thor, Hulk, Captain America, Superman, Batman, etc., do know that I understand that the chronology within all those comics are all over the place. So if I review something that is from a later point in time with other comic book series, just go with it. Because I understand that many other comic book readers do tend to go for one series and understand that, oh, there are missing pieces and you would want to go read those other comics to get a bigger picture. That's kind of the approach I'm taking with my comic book reviews. Also, I understand that some comic books have a storyline, or story arc in this case, that are big events in certain comic book series. Now, when I do reach the point where there is a comic book event, I will make sure to review that event on its own for its own review. For example, Civil War. I'll make that its own review. That's an example. So why am I starting my run of comic book reviews with Scott Pilgrim? That's because I love video games and anime. Simple as that. Scott Pilgrim was released from 2004 to 2010. The writer is Brian Lee O'Malley, who is also the artist for Scott Pilgrim. Scott Pilgrim is about a titular Canadian who is a slacker and part-time musician who just so happens to be the bass player for a band called Sex Bob-omb. He somehow falls in love with an American delivery girl, and he has to defeat her 7 evil exes in order to date her. Yeah, the premise is kind of bizarre, I know. The premise is just the beginning of how fun Scott Pilgrim is to read. Now, some may notice that the artwork really isn't at its best in the first volume of Scott Pilgrim, but the artwork does improve upon itself from volume to volume, and that's a good thing. And I'm not really taking it against Brian Lee O'Malley for the first volume of Scott Pilgrim. The first volume does its job well to set up for the rest of the series to follow. I can tell you one thing, that the biggest selling point with the Scott Pilgrim series as a whole are its characters. They are likable, not to mention some of them are funny. Scott Pilgrim does contain some anime references. It also pays homage to the medium of manga, because some common manga techniques are paid tribute in Scott Pilgrim. Also, this series has a chock full of video game jokes and video game references. Another concern I can see that some readers may nitpick with Scott Pilgrim is how formulaic it can be from volume to volume, since Scott does fight an evil X from volume to volume, with volume 5 being 2 X's instead of 1. I actually look at this as, hey, volume 1 is level 1, and so forth, and volume 6 is where the final boss appears. So actually, this formulaic narrative from volume to volume, I think was intentional. That is all I'm willing to say about the Scott Pilgrim series, because I think if I were to say any more about the series, I would take the fun away from you, little by little. And I don't want to do that, in case you haven't read it yet. But seriously, Scott Pilgrim is a lot of fun to read. Overall, Scott Pilgrim is a fun read from the first volume to the 6th and final volume. It is a love letter to anyone that loves anime and or video games. And if you love anime or video games, I strongly recommend Scott Pilgrim. I'm gonna give Scott Pilgrim a 10. Alternatively, I'm gonna give it a rating of awesome. If you like this review, feel free to hit the like button. And if you want to follow my channel, please feel free to hit the subscribe button. And as always, you're welcome to leave me a comment if you feel so inclined. If there's any comics you would like me to review in the future, list those requests down in the comment section down below. And thank you for watching my review of Scott Pilgrim. And I'm not done talking about Scott Pilgrim because there's also the film that I would like to review next. So I will see you in the next review.